My brothers and sisters, let me tell you about something wild that just happened. Something almost nobody in the West is talking about right now. I watched a young military captain make a move so bold, so risky, that every expert said it would destroy his country. Instead it's working, and the West just blinked. Before I go any further, hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind, and they don't want you knowing this. Drop a like if you're ready for the truth. Trust me, you'll want to remember where you heard this first. Now picture this scenario for a second. Put yourself in these shoes. You're 36 years old, the world's youngest leader. Your country is poor, deeply in debt, fighting terror groups on 3 borders. Foreign companies are mining billions in gold from your soil every single year. But your people, your own people, can't afford basic medicine or food. What would you do? Most leaders play it safe, follow the rules, take the loans, smile for the cameras. But when I took office in September 2022, after overthrowing the previous military leader, I looked at that playbook everyone expected me to follow, and I threw it out the window. What happened next shocked everyone, including me if I'm being honest. The soul of a nation was on the line. Here's the thing nobody tells you about Africa's gold, the dirty secret everyone knows but nobody says out loud. Burkina Faso is the 13th largest gold producer in the world, producing about 100 tons worth roughly $6 billion each year, yet our entire economy was only about $18 billion when I came to power. Think about that for a second. Billions in gold leaving the ground every single year, but the country stayed broke. Where was the money going? You already know the answer. Foreign companies, mostly from Europe and Canada, owned everything that mattered. Before I took power, Burkina Faso was earning roughly $1 billion a year from gold exports. $1 billion from $6 billion in actual value. That's like you working all year and keeping only your January paycheck. The rest, gone. Shipped to Toronto, London, Paris, pockets you'll never see. Canadian companies alone owned about $1.8 billion of our gold resources. French companies controlled even more. For decades they played the same game. Keep African countries in debt to Western banks. Let foreign companies mine the gold, oil and diamonds. Profits go overseas. Africans get poverty and pollution. One professor noted recently that to reverse 60 years of structural theft would take more than 3 years. 60 years of theft. Those aren't my words. That's what their own experts are calling it now. I saw the betrayal clearly when I took office, clearer than anything I'd seen in my life. I looked at the numbers, the contracts, the bank statements. My country was sitting on a gold mine, literally, but acting like a beggar at the table. The dignity of my people was being traded for scraps. Their souls were being crushed while foreigners got rich off our dirt. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part that made the West panic hard. I didn't just complain about it like previous leaders did. I didn't write another strongly worded letter. I did something nobody expected from a poor African country. Since taking power, we've earned $18 billion from gold. Wait, what? $18 billion? That's an almost 18-fold surge in revenue within roughly 3 years. How did we pull that off? You're probably asking that same question they asked in Washington and Paris. Here's the play that changed everything. The $30 billion gamble everyone's talking about now. I nationalized 2 gold mines and stopped exporting unrefined gold to Europe. Simple as that. I basically told Western mining companies, new rules or get out. You don't like it? There's the door. State ownership jumped from 10% to up to 30% in mining projects. We inaugurated a national gold refinery, expected to process 150 tons annually. That means keeping the profits at home, not shipping raw gold abroad for pennies on the dollar. But wait, there's more. And this is where it gets absolutely wild. We cleared our $4.7 billion external debt. $4.7 billion in debt, just gone. I rejected financial assistance from the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. I told them straight up, we don't need your loans anymore. That takes serious guts, right? Or maybe something else. Maybe desperation. Maybe genius. Maybe both. I'm still figuring it out myself. Now you'd think the West would celebrate a poor country paying off debt, right? You'd think they'd be happy about economic independence, about us standing on our own feet. Wrong. Dead wrong. They panicked hard. When I announced license withdrawals, Canadian mining company IAMGOLD lost 15% of its value on the Toronto Stock Exchange, while Fortuna Silver Mines and Orezone Gold plunged by 10%. Stock markets freaked out. Investors started sweating. Boardrooms in Toronto lost their minds. The head of the US Africa Command, General Michael Langley, accused me of using gold reserves to benefit military leaders at the expense of ordinary citizens, offering no evidence whatsoever. No proof. Just accusations. Classic move. In April 2025, thousands rallied in Ouagadougou after an alleged coup attempt failed, with some youth in Ghana offering to volunteer to fight in support of what we're building here. People across Africa started paying attention. Young people especially. They saw something they'd never seen before. An African leader saying no. But here's the question nobody's asking. The question that keeps me up at night. Why was the West so mad about an African country controlling its own resources? What are they really afraid of? Think about it with me for a second. If Burkina Faso succeeds, what happens next? Does Mali copy the playbook? Does Niger? Does Nigeria with all that oil? What happens when other resource-rich African countries realize they don't need Western approval to control what's under their own feet? That's the real fear. It's not about one small country. It's not about me. It's about the pattern spreading like wildfire. It's about the entire system that's worked for 60 years, suddenly breaking down, and that's exactly what's starting to happen right now, whether they like it or not. Here's where the story gets absolutely wild, where the results started showing up in ways nobody predicted. I announced that Burkina Faso reached food self-sufficiency in 2025. Food self-sufficiency in a country fighting terrorism on 3 fronts. Record cereal production reached almost 6 million tons in 2024. According to the World Bank and IMF, inflation dropped 2.7%, the gold mining industry is seeing growth, and extreme poverty is on the decline. Wait, let me get this straight. The guy everyone said would crash the economy just did the opposite. Growth is forecast at over 7.2% for 2026. A recent study shows Burkina Faso's economy can grow at 8% from 2025 to 2043, lifting an extra 2.4 million people out of poverty. But here's the kicker. The moment that told me something bigger was happening, my popularity soared, and at President Mahama's inauguration in Ghana in January 2025, I received the loudest applause of all 21 African heads of state present. The loudest applause. Not for the Harvard-educated diplomat, not for the guy with decades of experience, for the 36-year-old captain who told the West, no thanks, we're doing this our way. So why isn't this headline news everywhere? Why aren't Western media outlets celebrating an African success story? You already know why. Because if this works, if this actually succeeds long-term, it proves something they've denied for 60 years. It proves Africa doesn't need saving. It proves the poverty was never inevitable. It proves the system was rigged from the start. And that's a truth too expensive for them to admit. But hold up, let me be real with you for a second. This story isn't all sunshine and victory dances. There's a darker side nobody wants to talk about. Under my leadership, there has been a crackdown on freedom of the press and political opposition, including unlawful conscription of critics, journalists and activists. In June 2024, 4 prominent journalists were detained and forcibly conscripted into the military, with 3 more detained in March 2025. That's not just tough leadership, that's silencing people who disagree. In late January 2026, the government ordered the dissolution of all political parties, every single one. In September 2025, homosexuality was formally criminalized for the first time in the country's history. So here's the tough question I wrestle with every single day. Can you build economic freedom while crushing political freedom? Does one justify the other? Or am I just replacing one form of control with another? I don't have the answer. And anyone who tells you they do is lying. But we need to ask these questions. People see this situation completely differently depending on where they're standing. To many in the West, I'm a friend of Russia and a threat to democracy. That's one view, and honestly it's not totally wrong. I've increasingly aligned Burkina Faso with Russia, Turkey and China, while distancing from France and ECOWAS. I kicked out French troops who'd been in our country for years. But here's the other side, the perspective you won't hear on CNN or BBC. Some commenters note this is another Western-framed hit piece, and ask why Burkina Faso should remain poor while foreign companies cart away billions, calling criticism the language of neo-colonialism. Both perspectives have truth in them, and that's what makes this so complicated. The world isn't black and white. Maybe I'm both a nationalist hero and an authoritarian leader. People contain multitudes, right? But here's what bothers me most about this whole situation. I've survived at least 5 coup attempts since taking power. 5 attempts in 3 years. Who keeps trying to overthrow me? In April 2025, the government accused the government of Côte d'Ivoire of backing a planned coup attempt. Think about that. Neighboring countries, possibly with Western backing, trying to remove me. Why? What threat do I pose to Côte d'Ivoire? Officials described a thwarted assassination plot as coordinated and sophisticated, reinforcing claims that my political rupture with the old order has made me a target. The threats are real. The pressure is intense. Every morning I wake up not knowing if today's the day. And yet somehow against all odds we're still standing. The bet is paying off. Not perfectly, not without serious costs to our soul and dignity as a free society. But it's working in ways nobody predicted. And that's exactly what has the West so nervous. What keeps their analysts up at night. This story isn't really about one country or one leader anymore. It's about a choice the whole world is watching in real time. Can poor countries actually break free from the old system? I've reignited Pan-African consciousness with a bold anti-imperialist agenda rooted in self-reliance and resource nationalism. I played a major role in founding the Alliance of Sahel States, an alliance of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. 3 countries, same playbook. Kick out foreign troops, control your own resources, reject Western loans. In France, any threat to their influence on West African economy is taken seriously. According to leaked emails from Hillary Clinton, a similar threat motivated France to push for Gaddafi's destruction in Libya. Libya tried this exact same thing in the past. Gaddafi wanted an African gold currency. He wanted African resources controlled by Africans. Look what happened there. Look how that ended. So the real question is not whether my plan works. The numbers already show it's working. The question is whether the West will let it work long term. Here's what's actually at stake. The part that makes this a $30 billion story. Ghana, Mali and Burkina Faso together account for nearly 10% of global gold production. 10% of all the gold in the entire world. If these 3 countries keep their gold profits at home, that's tens of billions staying in Africa every single year. Money that used to flow to Toronto, London and Paris. Now imagine if Nigeria did this with oil, or Congo with cobalt for your phone batteries, or Zambia with copper for electrical wiring. The entire global economy would shift overnight. That's the $30 billion play everyone's missing. It's not just about Burkina Faso's gold. It's not about one captain's gamble. It's about whether Africa controls Africa's future for the first time in centuries. And the West just blink because they know exactly what comes next if this pattern spreads. Here's the part that keeps me up at night. The reality nobody wants to face. The West is stuck in a trap of their own making. If they support me, they admit the old system was rigged against Africa for decades. If they oppose me publicly, they prove my point about neo-colonialism to millions watching. The World Bank and IMF publicly urged restraint, warning that abrupt nationalizations might scare off investment, with mining firms warning such policies could make doing business risky. But here's the thing they don't understand. Those warnings only work if countries care more about foreign investment than sovereignty. And millions of young Africans are done caring about that. Almost 2/3 of Burkinabe believe the army should intervene when leaders abuse their power, with 66% accepting military rule, up from 24% in 2012. That's a massive shift in just over a decade. The old playbook isn't working anymore, and they know it. So what does this actually mean for you watching this right now? Okay, cool story, but why should I care about some African country? Fair question. Here's why this matters to everyone, including you. Gold prices, phone batteries, gas prices, all connected to African resources. If more African countries follow my model, expect prices to shift globally in ways you'll feel immediately. Your retirement fund probably has mining stocks in it right now. Your phone has minerals from Congo. Your car needs copper from Zambia. This isn't some distant story happening somewhere you'll never visit. This affects your wallet, your job, your future. Plus, this is a test case for the whole developing world watching carefully. If Burkina Faso succeeds long term, every resource-rich poor country will copy it. Venezuela, Bolivia, Indonesia, they're all taking notes. If I fail or get removed, it sends the opposite message. It tells poor countries to stay in their lane. The stakes are way bigger than one small African nation in West Africa. Now let me be brutally honest with you about something. I think about this constantly, and I could be totally wrong about everything. Burkina Faso's gold sector under my leadership is a high-stakes experiment in resource sovereignty, with the real test being whether gold wealth translates into lasting development, or becomes another chapter in resource mismanagement and corruption. That's the uncertainty everyone's wrestling with, including me. History is full of leaders who promised to help their people. Some delivered, many didn't. The country must not fall into the usual traps of inefficiencies, corruption and mismanagement that characterize most African state-owned enterprises. That's the pattern we've seen 100 times before. The question isn't just can I win against the West? It's can I win against corruption, mismanagement and basic human nature? That's the harder battle. That's the fight that happens when the cameras aren't rolling. And we won't know the answer for years, maybe decades. But here's what I know for sure right now. Burkina Faso's new mining policy is being watched closely by other West African nations exploring ways to reclaim control over their natural resources. The pattern is starting. To many in the black diaspora, including Africa, the Caribbean, Canada, and United States, I'm a bold, inspirational, and visionary leader standing up to decades of exploitation. That's not me bragging. That's what they're saying in barbershops and living rooms across the world. Young people see something different happening. they see someone saying no. Remember how this started? A young captain, a broke country, a massive gamble that everyone said would fail. The threats are still real, the pressure still intense, but somehow against all odds, the bet is paying off. Not perfectly, not without painful costs, but it's working in ways nobody predicted when I took office. And that's exactly what has the West so nervous. What has them scrambling to figure out their response. Because if one small African country can do this, what happens when others follow? What happens when the pattern spreads like wildfire across continents? The world is watching closely, as the success or failure could have far-reaching implications for Burkina Faso and the global economic order that's existed since World War II ended. Maybe I become the leader who finally broke the cycle of exploitation. Maybe I become another cautionary tale, another name in the history books of failed revolutions. Maybe the truth is somewhere messy in between. Maybe I'm building something beautiful while simultaneously crushing the very freedoms that make it worth building. I don't have all the answers, and anyone who claims they do is selling you something. But here's what we know for absolute certain right now. The $30 billion play happened. The West blinked when they saw the numbers. And nothing in African politics will be quite the same after this moment. Whatever happens next, whether I succeed or fail, whether I'm remembered as a hero or a villain, this moment matters. The soul of a continent is watching what happens here. The dignity of millions hangs in the balance every single day. And one young captain just proved that sometimes, the biggest risk is refusing to take one at all. The bet is on the table, the cards are dealt, and the next move, that's the part nobody can predict. But I'll tell you this much. I'd rather die standing on my feet than live forever on my knees begging for scraps from someone else's table. Now before you click away, I need you to do something. Drop a comment right now. What do you think happens next? Am I a hero fighting for my people? Or just another strong man in disguise? Is this economic freedom worth the political cost? There are no easy answers here, and I want to hear what you think. Hit that like button if this story surprised you, if it made you see Africa differently, if it challenged what you thought you knew about power and money and dignity, and smash that subscribe button because this story is far from over. Trust me, you'll want to see what comes next. The West is regrouping, the alliance is growing, and the whole world is about to learn what happens when people decide their dignity matters more than approval. This is just the beginning of something way bigger than any of us expected. The question is, will you be watching when everything changes?